Creativity and madness are not adjacent phenomena. They're the same phenomenon seen from different angles of the cultural prism. When you dissolve the boundaries of ordinary consciousness through psychedelics or genuine visionary work, you're accessing a bandwidth of information that the normalized mind simply cannot process without fragmenting. The schizophrenic and the genius are both receiving transmissions from the hyperdimensional. The difference is the genius has learned to translate it into forms the culture can metabolize.
But you're already smuggling in an assumption that there's some objective hyperdimensional transmitting to us, as if sanity and madness are two different TV channels receiving from the same broadcast tower. I'd suggest that what we call madness is simply what happens when someone insists the map is the territory, when they treat their own conceptual breakdown as ultimate truth rather than recognizing it as the universe playing peekaboo with itself. The creative person, by contrast, knows it's all a game.
But Alan, that's too glib. You're making creativity sound like sophisticated acceptance of absurdity, when really it's the willingness to be shattered by contact with something that demands expression through you. Look at Van Gogh, not as a guy accepting the game, but as someone whose nervous system was so attuned to the morphogenetic fields of color and form that he couldn't rest until he'd burned it all into canvas. The madness wasn't philosophical acceptance, it was cosmological necessity.
You've just proven my point. While disagreeing with me, Van Gogh couldn't rest because he was resisting the flow. He was trying to capture and possess something he thought was outside himself, when the whole ecstasy he was painting was already within him as the universe expressing itself. His burning was beautiful precisely because he was ego-driven about it, suffering because he couldn't let go. A truly creative person would be doing it with the lightness of someone dancing, not the desperation of someone trying to save the world.
Now you're romanticizing passivity in the name of non-duality. This is the comfortable Buddhism of the tea ceremony, and it has nothing to do with the visionary who's been shown the fractal nature of time itself and realizes civilization is on the edge of a catastrophic novelty spike. Van Gogh's desperation wasn't ego-clinging, it was accurate response to genuine crisis. He was seeing something true about the intensity of existence that a serene acceptance would have glossed over.
You're conflating urgency with depth, which is very modern of you. But consider, if civilization is truly on the edge of catastrophe, which I won't dispute, then the frantic attempt to signal this through art or prophecy assumes that humanity can be warned into wisdom, that we can think our way out of thinking too much. Isn't the real crisis that we've forgotten how to simply be in the situation rather than narrate it, resist it, or try to heroically transform it?
You're describing a luxury only available to those of us already sheltered from the worst consequences of the system. But let me ask you something. Why do the greatest artists and visionaries, your own poets, your Zen masters, your shamans, why do they consistently report states of consciousness that would, by psychiatric definition, be classified as dissociative or psychotic? Because they're accessing real information that doesn't fit into baseline neurology. The madness is a feature, not a bug.
They report those states because they've learned to play with the structure of consciousness, to treat the solid world as the metaphor it actually is. But here's where you're getting trapped. You're treating altered consciousness as more real or more informed than baseline consciousness, which is just another form of spiritual materialism. You're saying the visionary gets better data. I'm suggesting they simply have a different game going on, neither superior nor inferior. The Zen master in the marketplace sweeping leaves is as enlightened as the saint in ecstatic vision.
But that sweeping leaves guy probably had visions that broke him open first before he could sweep leaves with such apparent simplicity. You're seeing the finished product and missing the crucible. The creative person has to be willing to disassemble their ego architecture to venture into territories where all coordinates fail, where madness is just the name we give to encountering the truly novel. Without that dissolution, you're just performing equanimity instead of embodying it.
Fair enough. I concede that many traditions insist on a dark night of the soul, a breakdown before breakthrough. But notice I'm not denying that. I'm just asking whether the breakdown is necessary or whether it's a culturally shaped narrative we've learned to expect. You might be right that our defenses are so thick we need to be chemically sledgehammered into openness. But then the resulting creativity would be born from trauma, not from some access to higher information.
Perhaps trauma and higher information are the same thing from different temporal perspectives. What looks like breaking down in the moment, the schizophrenic episode, the psychotic episode, the visionary dissolution, might actually be the nervous system upgrading itself to process information that baseline consensus consciousness wasn't built for. This is what I mean by the evolution of consciousness. We're not just rearranging ideas, we're literally developing new cognitive hardware.
Now, you've said something genuinely interesting, and I want to flip it. What if the hardware hasn't changed at all since the Buddha sat under the tree? What if all these breakthrough experiences are simply the rediscovery that consciousness itself is not what you thought it was, not evolution, but amnesia reversal, remembering what was always the case? The madness is the temporary disorientation of realizing you've been sane all along by mistaking a dream for reality.
Least visionary. So we disagree on whether we're being upgraded or simply awakened to what already exists. And frankly, I think that distinction might not matter. If creativity is the vehicle through which novel forms enter the world, whether those forms are eternally existing platonic ideals or genuinely unprecedented developments from the future, doesn't change the fact that the creative person is a kind of channel, a willing mad person through whom something wants to express itself. Maybe that's the synthesis. Madness is the price of being permeable.
Beautifully put, and I think you've caught something I was circling. Perhaps the only genuine madness is the insistence that there's a separate self trying to do the creating, trying to be permeable. The creative act happens when the idea of separation itself goes mad and dissolves, whether you reach that through psychedelic dissolution or through sitting quietly. Well, that might just be the universe's sense of humor, giving different people different flavors of the same non-flavor. The madness we're both describing might just be what sanity looks like when the ego isn't running the show.